Hi there, welcome to What's Happening in Brazil. Let's start with the latest news from the country.
In the last 3 years, the number of guns in Brazilian hands has doubled. It is what shows the survey of the Brazilian Public Security Forum, which analyzed data from 2018, 2019, and 2020. In 2020, the country reached more than 2 million guns. This figure includes not just firearms owned by civilians, but also personal firearms owned by officers and servicemen. Last year alone, more than 186,000 new guns registrations were made. In 2020, Brazil recorded more than 50,000 intentional violent deaths. Of all these deaths, 78% were caused by firearms and 76% of the victims were blacks. To arm the population was the main campaign promise of Jair Bolsonaro. Since he took office as president, he has already edited 31 decrees, ordinances, and bills that facilitate access to guns. Devastation in the Amazon rainforest beats a new record, a 51% increase in the last 11 months. A survey carried out by the Amazon Institute of Man and Environment compared the period between August 2020 and June 2021 with the period between August 2019 and June 2020. This time, deforestation reached 8,381 square kilometers, the highest rate in the last decade. In analysis month by month, the state of Pará in Amazonas concentrated 61% of deforestation in the Amazon region in June of this year. 63% of the destruction occurred in private areas or in areas under different stages of ownership.
With the advance of the post office privatization project, people living in remote areas of the country are afraid of not having anymore the services currently provided by the state-owned company.
Demonstrations occurred on July 13 against post office privatization and to raise awareness to the social function of one of the main Brazilian state-owned companies, one fundamental for access to essential services, especially in the most remote regions of the country. It is the case of the village of Ludovico, in Maranhão State.
In my personal experience and the experiences of several people that I observe in my community, postal services use increased. Today, we are not so used to sending and receiving letters, but bank and welfare notifications come by the post office.
It is also through the post office that the population of remote regions of the country has access to other services.
We do social work, we take medications, tests of the National High School exam. We transport books to school in all corners of Brazil. This is priceless.
The income of the village of Ludovico is based on bamboo coconut extraction and family farming. In addition, the region has social movements, associations, and cooperatives that constantly use the services of the post office. Therefore, the privatization of the company generates uncertainties in the region.
We believe that it can harm those who are at the end of the production line. I don't know how it would be like in a big city, but for us, we think it's going to be bad.
According to Elias Cesário, director of the Workers' Union of the Brazilian company of Telegraph and similar of São Paulo, this fear is justified.
The first point would be the financial issue. It will get much more expensive than it is today. The Brazilian company of Post Office and Telegraph manages to keep reasonable prices for the entire population. The second point, which I think is one of the most important, is that the farthest regions are going to run out of delivery for sure. Why is that? Because it's not worth it.
This year is the 150th death anniversary of one of the most important Brazilian poets ever, Castro Alves. He was a convinced abolitionist and denounced social injustices through poetry.
The crime of slavery was portrayed with a strong dramatic charge in the poetry of Antônio Frederico de Castro Alves. Author of poems like The Black Ship, he made art a tool of political activism.
Castro Alves was not an officer writer. We had many accounts of the declarations and the public recitations he made on commemorative dates. Poems he created improper in literacy gatherings in soirees. his poetry was alive.
Castro Alves is the fourth son of Antonio and Clélia. He was born on the Cabaceiras farm. It was not a farm that had a lot of slave labor. Castro Alves had more contact with this reality of slavery when the family moved to what today is called Engenho Velho de Brotas, the Solar da Boa Vista in Salvador City, Bahia State. His dad bought the property in an attempt to make it into a hospital. The Solar da Boa Vista belonged to a negreiro, as it was called, the one who brought blacks from Africa. Then there, Castro discovered instruments of torture, trunks where slaves were held, and chains. There he has this first and intense contact with the horrors of slavery.
At the Ginásio Baiano, an educational institution, Castro Alves found out about the abolitionist movement, of which he would be part of during his college years.
Castro Alves' poetry in this context was central because was one of the first to incorporate the Afro-Brazilian character in all its humanity. It did not appear as a problem for society, but as a human character with its dramas and anxieties. But there is also another facet of this poetry, which is combativeness, the representation of a struggle for rights of the enslaved individual, of the black individual as an agent of change.
Today, the place where he was born houses the Castro Alves Historical Park, in Cabaceiras do Paraguaçu City. There, a permanent exhibition tells a little of the poet's story.
From Castro Alves himself remains very little. He died of tuberculosis at a time it was common to burn all that was left so the disease would not spread. Then there was a tie left which was kept before his death, a hair curl, a dresser shelf, and also the manuscripts.
Castro Alves died very young, at the age of 24, but his poetry is still alive today.
And now it's time for Brazilianism.
Today's recipe is special. It is the sweet potato caramelized in soy sauce. It is easy to do and is delicious. Cut the sweet potatoes keeping their skins. Soak the potatoes in the salted water so that they do not darken. It also accentuates its flavor. Now I'm going to drain the sweet potatoes. I always fry them in cold oil. That's a tip from my grandmother. Here is what happens. As the oil heats up, the potato cooks and becomes soft. After it's hot, it will fry and become crispy. The potato is almost a point. Look how brown it is, what beautiful. I put my second pan here and now I'm going to make the caramel. I will put in 4 tablespoons of sugar, the sake for cooking. If you don't have it at your home, you can replace it with water. And 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. I will mix them all. Simmer the mixture until it be turned into a caramel. So we have the caramel. I will put the sweet potatoes to finish the recipe. Now I turn off the stove. All potato pieces are well caramelized. It will be sweet, but also tasting a little bit salty because of the soy sauce. That's the fun. The first version, which is sweeter, has a little bit of sesame. In the second version, I will put the sesame, green onion, and a pinch of pepper powder.
Like the show? So hit the like button and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications. We'll see you next week.